Hey guys. Okay, so your Lab Exam 1 grades are up. You can find them in the .txt file in grades in AFS, so you can go look those up now. However, I did want to post this video as a follow-up to just some things that Greg, Andrew, and I observed while we were going through the results. I'm going to give you some statistics here. And keep in mind, this first block of text over here is the adjusted statistics. The raw scores were not where we wanted them to be for the first lab exam, but we were very, very lenient grading this, so I just want to let you guys know. So anyway, the final average is about an 82%, okay? Out of 19 total students, we got 12 A's, so that's very, very encouraging. We're pretty happy about that, and we got 9 100s out of those 12 A's. So if you got 100, props to you, good job, you probably know what you're doing. All right, so the highest final score was 100. Obviously, we had 9 of those, and then the lowest was a 50, and we had a couple of people get those. So if you're in that range, you probably want to pay a little bit more attention to this video. All right, so that being said, however, these are the adjusted statistics. The raw average before we went in and looked at everyone's grades and then decided where we wanted everyone to be, that was about a 75, okay? And the raw lowest score was a 30, and we did have a couple of those. Originally, we had 6 100s, so we bumped 6 people up to have 100s, but just keep in mind that if you got a 100, don't automatically assume that everything went right with your functions. Definitely go back and check and make sure you're getting the expected output. I will post solutions to the lab exam in a couple of days. I want you to go ahead and try to figure them out on your own first and figure out what you did and correct those errors, all right? So I'll let you know when those are posted. Okay, so a few things that were kind of really frustrating for us, okay? All right, so save your files, your functions, and your directories with the name that we tell you to save it in and in the appropriate place, okay? Because this is really trivial and you should be getting it right. Besides, if you don't do this, we might be missing your files. We had a few people name their .rb files not the right thing. We had some people save it in not the right place. All right, so I don't know how lenient we're going to be on this in the future. Maybe we're just going to be, like if we don't have that file, we're just not going to grade it and you're going to get a 0, all right? So just make sure you do this, okay? Just make sure you go in, save everything how it should be, and we won't have any problems with that. Okay, so a few common mistakes, all right? We saw this a lot, and that's not good, all right? So a lot of you tried to change your iterators in a for loop. We told you multiple times not to do this, and the reason is because this is just a no-no in computer science in general. Okay, so what happens is that because you're not supposed to do this, if you try to do this, different computers will treat this in different ways. So like, for example, sometimes it will change I and add I to, or add 1 to whatever I happens to be after this, and then do something funky like that. Sometimes it'll just ignore I, or whatever you do to I inside the for loop. But either way, it's an irregularity and they don't compile all the same. So if you did something like this, we had to open it up and figure out what you were doing because it was really hard to tell from your output what you were trying to do. That being said, however, in the end, we did open up everyone's files, assuming that if you didn't get 100 the first time when it ran with the autograder, we opened up all of your files and checked them by hand, okay? So it's not like we graded anyone unfairly. We looked at everyone's and made sure at least you had some idea of what you were doing. That being said, also, we didn't hand out any zeros. So each function was worth 5 points. Okay, so you got some score from 1 to 5. We didn't hand out any zeros because we opened everyone and we at least understood that you guys tried to do something that was the right thing. So we're probably not going to be that lenient in the future again. For example, this one down here, the syntax errors, how lab exams are graded during the regular school year is that if your function doesn't compile, it's an automatic 0, okay? So something as simple as this, if your entire function is right and you have a conditional that is not a comparison syntax and you have something that's an assignment like this and it doesn't compile, okay, we're not going to open it. If it doesn't compile, it's it's an automatic 0, all right? So make sure you're not having any syntax errors, okay? Make sure you run all your functions, and especially with the expected output. We tell you the answers to these exams, okay? So if it's not the right output, go fix it. Okay, so this was another one that was a little bit frustrating. Okay, so return statements that always execute in a loop. So whether it be a for loop or a while loop, what's wrong with these kind of, they're not actually functions, but bits of code, is that this is a for loop, fine, there's a conditional, fine, there's a return statement, but there's an else statement that also returns. So basically what you've told your computer to do in this case is you want it to iterate, but then you're saying, like the first time we go into this, whatever you do, return something, and return automatically is going to stop your function. So we had a few files that like had like 4 return statements in one function, which should probably not happen at this point. So just watch out for these. Another one is like this. So this is fine for most of this. You're doing like if this, then print this, that's fine. But then once you end it, you have your return statement inside your for loop. So whatever after whatever it does here, it's always going to return, and it's just never going to iterate again. All right, so watch out for that. It's fine to put a return statement or even several return statements in a for loop, but just make sure that it doesn't always execute that return statement inside a for loop. All right, so if you have something like that, it's just never ever going to iterate. All right, so that's pretty much it. We just want to remind you that this is a grading rubric, okay? So your first lab exam was worth 5% of your grade, okay? But it's not such a big deal. If you didn't do so well, it's not going to be a huge deal. Make sure that you go over, learn what mistakes you made, learn how to fix them, okay? And you should be fine for the next programming exam. And we also want to remind you that your homework is worth a lot of your grade, okay? It's the biggest portion of your grade. So just make sure that you're turning those in on time and getting them right. It's not hard to get your homework right, all right? So, yep, that's pretty much it for this video. And if you have any questions or concerns about your grades, please either comment or email the staff. But we'll see you tomorrow in lecture.